Learning Plate Tectonics. Go ahead to your unit overview, and let's see. We've got describe the features of Earth's four layers. We have that. Check. Summarize Alfred Wegener's. Yes, we have that. Check. Explain how fossils, rocks, and check. First the cause. We haven't really talked about that yet. No, we haven't really talked about that. We'll talk about that today. Okay, up here, plate boundary foldable, we have not done, but we have done the continental drift foldable. We have done the, I'm going to write in check, and film canister lab. We just did. So far, so good. As for the vocab words, yes, we have done the rock cycle. So we've looked at the three types of rock: igneous, metamorphic, sedimentary. We've looked at the types of heat transfer. We've looked at the layers of the Earth: outer core, inner core. We've talked a little bit about basalt and granite, but we're going to talk more about those today, so I'm actually going to check those off for you. Continental drift, we've talked about. Tectonic plates, we haven't really talked about, but we will more today. Alfred Wegener, Pangea. We'll talk about the plate boundaries. Oceanic crust, continental old rock. Yeah, we haven't really talked about those yet. Oh, magma. Okay, now you remember that magma is located where? Inside the crust. And lava outside the crust. Okay, go ahead and flip to the next available page. And we'll go ahead and turn that guy sideways. And let's title that Continental Drift. And plate tectonics. Now we're actually going to put 4 or 5 different diagrams on this page. Are we ready? Yay! Diagram 1. Okay, the crust would be the first layer of the Earth, and since we're talking about continental drift and plate tectonics, we're going to wonder why that happens, and that's what we're kind of diagramming here. The crust is where, our school is. This is where we live, and we have beautiful little trees and shrubberies. It's gorgeous. Okay, under the crust, you remember, is the lithosphere. And the lithosphere is the layer between the crust and the true mantle, and it is still kind of a solid layer, although it kind of is part of the mantle. The asthenosphere is that kind of silly putty consistency that we've talked about, or kind of like tar. Asthenosphere. Okay, now this is the layer that we're going to be talking about today because this layer holds convection currents. Under that, of course, you would have the true mantle, and then your outer core, and your inner core. Okay, but really, the asthenosphere is what we're talking about today. So in the asthenosphere, you have the conduction zone. It's called conduction because it's moving heat from one place to another. Okay? These convection currents help that happen. So, in diagram number 2, let's blow that picture up a little bit. You've got the crust. The crust is very cool compared to the other layers, which means that it will be more dense. Okay, in that asthenosphere, you have your convection currents swirling around. You can see if one is going counterclockwise, the other one is going clockwise. Okay, so they kind of work like gears. So if you think of them like gears, chugga, 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 chugga. Okay, that's what will be happening right in this area right here. Okay, now down here would be the core. This is your heat source. Means it's going to be very hot. Hot, hot, hot. If you have a heat source, you're becoming less dense. And you're moving up, right? As you move up towards the crust, you cool down. So then as you cool down, you're going to sink. And that's what gives you the currents. So we have that handy dandy little saying, heats up, moves up, cools down, moves down. Fantastic. Okay, diagram 3. Okay, now don't worry if you can't draw as good as me. Okay, it'll happen. Yeah, probably not today, but that's okay. You'll get there, super students. Okay, so this is a side view of the crust. Yeah, it's amazing. I know. So if this were the crust, this guy right here is your bloop bloop continent. So all this low-lying stuff down here is your oceanic crust. That's a beautiful drawing. Okay, now under that crust, just like we saw up here, we're going to have convection currents swirling around. So they look something like this. And you can see this one is going clockwise. So the one next to it is going counterclockwise. And clockwise again, counterclockwise. See that? Oh, that's gorgeous. Now what that means is that right here, these convection currents are pulling magma down into the inner earth. Here, do you see those gears? They're moving up, 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 up. Troop, troop, troop. Right there. So we're pushing magma up towards the crust. And then here, okay, look at the gears. Think about if my arrow is moving this way and this way. Gears are moving this way. That means that I'm moving down away from the crust and into the inside of the earth. Ooh, ah. Okay, now this works like a gear. So that's going to be our fourth little diagram. So those convection currents work like gears. Am I going to ask you to draw gears? Yes, yes I am. Because if I have to draw it, you get to draw it. Oh, check out my gears here. They're kind of hard to draw. They look a little funky, but that's okay. You're getting the idea. Oh, that's kind of a gear. So if this gear were interlocking with the gear next to it, oh, I messed that up. That's okay. They look like little amoebas or something, but they're not. They're gears. Okay. So, if one gear is moving in one direction, the other gear is moving in the other direction. So, if this gear is moving in this direction, this gear is moving in the opposite direction. Okay, so that means that continents drift or move because of convection currents in the mantle. I'm going to underline convection currents and mantle. So it works kind of like a conveyor belt. Okay, if you think about it, if this plate, has a conveyor belt, if it's sitting on top of a conveyor belt and this convection current is moving this way, this plate is going to start moving that way. And then this plate is going to start moving that way. Okay, away from each other. Here, they're going to start moving towards each other and colliding. Okay, so number 5 is just a question, basically. Think about where does lava or magma move up toward crust Okay, so over here, do you see where it's moving up towards the crust there? Oh. Okay. This creates weak spots. And also new rock. So that would be a constructive force to the earth, right? Alright, go ahead and flip to that next page. You can leave this one straight up and down. Title it Plate Boundaries. Okay, so where those conveyor belts are working, pulling apart, pushing together, you have 3 types of boundaries. Convergent. Okay, if you think about converging, that's just coming together. Generally, it's drawn from above, something like this, with your 2 plates moving together. There's a couple things that might happen here. Okay, you could get a subduction zone. Where one plate moves under the other. Or you could get mountains, where two plates come together and they just kind of buckle upwards, creating mountains. The next type of boundary is a divergent boundary. Generally, we draw that from above something like this, where the plates are pulling apart. This is generally going to create a rift valley. If you're pulling apart a continent, think of the Africa Rift Valley or the Red Sea or Madagascar. Or, if this is happening in the ocean, you would form a mid-ocean ridge. And that's code for a ridge in the middle of the ocean. Oh. Okay, so we'll talk more about that guy. And then transform. That's your third boundary. And those are generally drawn moving side to side of each other. So there's no vertical motion, only side to side. And that creates a fault line. Think of the San Andreas Fault in California. Alright, I know we're moving fast, but on the next piece of paper, turn it sideways. At the top, we're going to put convergent. That would be a convergent boundary. Divergent. Nice job. And transform. Oh, that's a funky S. S-F-O-R-M. Transform boundary, or three types of boundaries. So like I said, we're just going to set up a table. So draw your three columns. Ta-da! Yeah, you can ta-da. It's amazing. Okay, so we're going to look at what happens when continents, so a continental plate and a continental plate collide, diverge, or transform, so move past each other. And we're going to look at what happens when a continental and oceanic plate come together. There you go. And lastly, two oceanic plates. All right, when two continents collide, think India and Asia, you get mountains. Think of the Himalayas. If continents and continents pull apart, you get a Rift Valley. Okay, so think of Africa, the Red Sea, Madagascar. Bless you. Okay, if a continent and a continent move past each other, you have a fault line. So think of the San Andreas Fault in California, US of A. Okay, this one's kind of important. If a continental and an oceanic plate converge, you get a subduction zone. In which case you would have a trench and a volcanic arc. So think of like South America and the Pacific plate, which I think it's actually the Nazca plate there. So these two plates collide, you get a subduction zone. We're not going to worry about these two boxes. Ah, big sigh of relief. Ah. Oceanic and oceanic plates, same thing. Trench and volcanic arc. When oceanic and oceanic plates pull apart, you get a mid-ocean ridge. A ridge in the middle of the ocean. Okay, and this happens throughout. If you look at the map of the ocean, you can see those little things that look like stitches. Those are your mid-ocean ridges in any ocean of the world. Flip to the next page. Nice job. Alright, we're getting there, guys. Basalt and granite. This is the reason for subduction zones. Okay, so real quick. Basalt and granite. Are two kind of main types of rock. They're both igneous rocks. Basalt makes up the oceanic crust. It's like a charcoal color. Or maybe black. Fine crystals. Meaning it is not visible. You cannot see those crystals. And you can remember basalt makes up oceanic crust because basalt is under or below the salt. Which would be like the ocean water or the salt water. Okay, here's an example of basalt. Ta-da! Okay, so you can see you cannot see the crystals there. If I were to cut this open, it just looks exactly the same as this. This makes up the ocean floor. It's fairly dense, pretty cool. Okay, granite makes up your continental crust. It is multicolored. And kind of light. It has coarse crystals, which means coarse means that they are visible. So fine, not visible to the naked eye, coarse, visible. And you can remember that this makes up the continental crust because of Pikes Peak granite. Okay, so if granite makes up Pikes Peak and we live right next to Pikes Peak on a continent, it's continental crust. Here's an example. And you can see those crystals. This one has kind of a pinkish, blackish color, although they vary from like green and black and white and black, gray. Okay, there you go. Next page. This is where we were headed all along. I'm so excited to get here because this is our final finale. I'm so excited. It looks very daunting, however. Da-da-da! Oh my gosh, this is seafloor spreading. Okay? That's where we're going to get. So, turn your page side. And if you put your hand in the middle of the page, the cool thing about this is that everything on this side is just a copy or a mirror image of this side. Alright, so we're going to start with our mid-ocean ridge. So we're in the middle of the ocean. Whoa, hope you can swim. Pew, 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 little volcano there. This is my oceanic crust. Which is made of basalt. And then you just mirror image that. So right now you kind of have an ocean crust that looks like a mustache. Okay, draw up your continental crust. So it dips down, and then we move up into that thick continent. And we know that continental crust is made of granite. And same thing on the other side. Okay, now we know that the crust is moving because of convection currents in the mantle. So, kind of a key player here. Draw these up, out. Make sure you're looking at the direction there. Up, out. These are our convection currents. Okay, so you can see here are my gears, and we're moving up towards the crust. So that means magma is moving up and spurting out some lava there from a magma chamber. Beautiful. We're pulling apart here. So as we spurt up, makes new rock, pushes old away. Move up, move out, move up, move out, move up, move out, and so on. So this is a divergent boundary. Here's my mantle. You guys are doing a nice job. Kind of looks like Yoda. Here's my ocean. Drive my little boat here. Okay, now you can see here the oceanic crust is pushing under. That is called a subduction zone because the oceanic is subducting under the continental. Same thing over here. And because we're pushing a plate under, grinding under another plate, we're causing a lot of heat to move up and a lot of pressure to move up, which is causing volcanoes. Those volcanoes are called a volcanic arc. Same thing over here. Lots of heat and pressure forming volcanoes. Okay, now at that subduction zone, we have two plates coming together or colliding, so that is your convergent boundary. And same thing here. You can see this would be a pretty big area, right? So this might be North America and Europe or something like that. Big ocean in between. Okay, now because this mid-ocean ridge is here, this lava is cooling, hardening, and making new rock. And it diverges and pushes out, pushes out, pushes out, pushes out, until you get the very oldest rock near the subduction zones. Okay, and at that subduction zone, you also have a trench. That's your deepest, darkest part of the ocean. And same thing over here. Okay, and I'm trying to think. I think we are done. Give yourselves a round of applause. Oh, good job.